Okay, if everyone's back, we can go ahead and get started with the very last talk for the symposium. Um, this is just a representation of all of the topics that we've covered um, over the past 2 days. It's been incredible to hear from all of our speakers and have such an engaging um, parent community as well as industry stakeholders participate in this symposium. So I'm very excited to be wrapping up today's session with a brief talk on ACD's research strategy. But before we get started, I wanted to very quickly give you an introduction, a formal introduction to me. So my name is Sangeeta Iyer. I have a background in molecular pharmacology and neuroscience, specifically in model and assay development for human genetic diseases. I have experience with the rare disease sector. I've worked with patient advocacy groups in the past, do so currently. And I am acutely aware of the challenges that we face in bringing a rare disease therapeutic to market. And rare diseases are really unique. They, as such, have a number of different considerations that are not applicable to diseases that affect large numbers of patients. So there are many barriers to bringing a rare disease therapeutic to market. As we already know, they affect a small number of patients. Typically, even though they arise from a single gene, they affect multiple organ systems and tissue types. So they're multisystemic and they have varied clinical presentation. There's a huge spectrum of behavioral defects that you see in patients with rare disease. One of the hardest things in developing therapeutics for rare diseases is that many times when you start out on this process, as a researcher, you recognize that there is a lack of like research tools, appropriate models to actually conduct your drug discovery process and further on to take it to development. You have high development costs associated with bringing a therapeutic to market. And last but not the least, identifying patients that you can tap into for a clinical trial, the ones that would be most suited to a particular kind of therapeutic, is also challenging. Um, and so for all of these reasons, ACD plays a really important role in working together along with our stakeholders to ensure that we have a path to the clinic. So the main aims of a research strategy are built around the challenges in bringing a rare disease therapeutic to market. So we play a role in identifying gaps, building and sharing research infrastructure, in being the patient voice, actively engaging with patients, enabling them to participate in the research process. We identify a coordination between stakeholders, whether it's industry, academia, national or international. Um, and also in facilitating the building of a robust patient registry, one that really links genotypic information to phenotypes and the like. And what I want to point out over here is that ACD is not a passive nonprofit or organization. I think we are in an environment where nonprofits are performing at a different level compared to say 10 or 20 years ago. Mostly back in the day, patient organizations or nonprofits would fund different kinds of research approaches, but we really see ACD as a more active stakeholder. We really want to identify the gaps in developing a therapeutic and bringing it to market, and then work actively to actually plug those gaps, create those resources. And so when you think about the research strategy itself, like one looming question is like, how do you go from like strategy, what you do at the bench, to therapy? What does that path of development look like? And so this is a brief schematic that outlines the different stages that are required, that we navigate when we move towards the clinic. And we've heard a lot from our speakers over yesterday and today about some of these phases, but I'll highlight for you once more what each of these phases mean. So to start off with, you have an early drug discovery process. This is where we bring in the models, bring in the tools to study a disease, and then do the test with potential therapeutics, either through a screen or through individual molecules that you believe works on a particular model system. And this process is on average about 5 years. So if you take into consideration that some of these tools might be missing, then you're sort of starting back further. And it's important to highlight that like this is where a lot of the talks that we heard from in the past 2 days are focused on. This is also the area that ACD is playing a role in facilitating research. The next phase, once you've identified a potential therapeutic, is testing them in mouse models. And here again, we heard we heard from some of our speakers how some compounds, potential therapeutics, are being tested in mouse models for proof of concept, or to assess whether those potential therapeutics do rescue the disease effects. And after this phase, all of this information is integrated to put together an investigational new drug application, or an IND. And it's important to note that this juncture, this application and its approval is absolutely essential for you to be able to dose any drug to patients. So you cannot put any drugs in patients without having this IND approved. And once you have an IND approved is where you go into the clinical development phase, which in and of itself is divided into 3 different spaces, each of which is speaking to the safety of the potential therapeutic, the efficacy, and the doses that you might want to eventually bring to market. And once you have this successful clinical development is when a drug gets to market. Also want to highlight that this particular clinical development phase is another area that ACD is tackling head on. We are attempting to bring our patient community together by playing an active role in putting together a registry that incorporates all of the information from our patient community. And I'll touch on that in a little bit. So as we talk about therapies, these are broadly the 3 different buckets that therapies fall into. And we've heard from Dr. Longo, we heard from Ameya Kasture, as well as some of our other speakers about therapeutics that belong to different categories. So let's do a quick review of what each of these therapeutics means. So first up, you have repurposable drugs. These are essentially drugs that are on the market for other diseases. They've been studied for other diseases. And so as such, these drugs, there's like known safety information that you can tap into. There's known information in terms of scaling for manufacturing. So if you want to produce a large quantity of this drug, those are problems that have already been solved for this category of drugs because they've been on the market for some other indication. So these do enjoy a relatively short time to the market. That said, they are not very profitable, because of which you don't really see a lot of repurposable drugs on the market. There's also less commercial interest in these. The next category of drugs is new molecular entities, and these are the types of drugs that we are most used to seeing. These are typically small molecules. They have a traditional time to discovery, traditional challenges of proving the safety, the efficacy, the toxicity, regulatory approval. And CMC over here stands for the process of scaling up the production of the compound, putting it in the right format, so formulation, so putting it in a pill or a capsule, and then bringing it to market. This last category of therapeutics is also a very interesting one that we've seen more therapies in this class come up over the past couple of years. And biologics refers to any therapeutic that is biological in origin. So a protein, an enzyme, an antisense oligonucleotide, or gene therapy. These are therapeutics that belong to the class of biologics. And although you might think that this is trivial to discover because what you're doing is replacing a gene or replacing an enzyme, it's important to acknowledge that there's long-term safety profiles that are unknown, as Dr. Walia alluded to in his talk. So long-term safety profiles are unknown. The process of scaling up these biologics, so to produce a large quantity of it that can then be given to everyone, is also a difficult process. So the scale up for this particular class of therapies is really challenging. And it's a very expensive process too, because of which, again, as Dr. Walia alluded, these therapeutics are priced quite high. So while we talk about those particular classes of therapeutics, I do want to highlight that that being said, the number of rare disease treatments approved from both classes have been going up in the past 5 years. So you have small molecules as well as gene therapies coming to market. And what this means is that our understanding of how to bring a gene therapy to market, how to assess the safety features and have a successful scale up, and run the clinical trial that then brings them to market, all of this knowledge is improving. And so I'm very hopeful for our community that over the next several years, we will begin to see therapies that are applicable for CCDS disorders as well, belonging to both classes. Okay, so that being said, ACD's research strategy is involved in identifying roadblocks and facilitating the path to the development of therapies. So broadly, our research strategy is divided along these three goals. And over the next slide, I'm going to talk about breaking down the process and seeing how does research strategy help us in the drug, right? So how do these factors come into play? And so why do we need research tools at all? We've already acknowledged that the CCDS deficiencies occur in a variety of tissue types. They occur in a variety of patients of different genetic origins. And so to capture these defects and build a holistic understanding, you need more models. And this is why ACD supports the deposition of biosamples to Coriell. The more models that are available for researchers to tap into, the more holistic the understanding that they can build about the disease. These models are then utilized by our partners. And who are our partners in this process? Our partners are clinicians, researchers, industry stakeholders who use these research tools to build a better understanding of the disease itself. And they do so by making these important correlations, as we've already seen, between the genotype of a disease and the phenotype or its presentation in a model system, whether the model system is cells or mice. And these types of studies also enable their understanding for biomarkers. So when you do take a therapeutic to clinic, what's that measure of correction that you're going to be able to see early on? Metabolomics and proteomics studies help us get there. They help you develop a fingerprint of the disease presentation in a model, and this type of information can be extrapolated to human patients as well. So that's why all of these tools are necessary. Along with the tools, method development to enable all of these measurements is also equally critical. And all of these work together. These factors culminate in our development of a therapeutic, whether it's a small molecule or a biologic, that can then be put into clinical trials with the appropriate regulatory approval. And this last part of putting it into the patients and figuring out what to measure, that's another aspect that ACD is critically interested in. Okay, so I want to acknowledge that ACD has enjoyed some recent funding success. Our whole strategy around research goals really came together when we were putting together this Rare S1 application for the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. That's when Laura Trutu and I started working together to define what ACD's research strategy would look like. And I'm happy to note that that effort was successful, and we've received a large amount of funding to enable some of the work that we're planning over the next couple years. We've also been successful in applying for a variety of other grants. Most recently, and I'll plug this really quick for our researcher community, we received an award from BHERD for AdGene reagents. So if you have any utility for these tools in your work, please reach out to us. We are also in the process of putting together a PCORI grant, and this grant is really geared towards understanding core outcomes that will be useful for an eventual clinical trial. And I want to also acknowledge that prior to all of these efforts, it's really you, the parent and researcher community, that has been so critical in raising awareness and also driving some of the funding opportunities before these formal grants came into place. So you play a big role in raising awareness for these diseases. Okay, so As we talk about research strategy, I think some of the members of our community may have a question about why don't we double down on one approach, say gene therapy? Why don't we double down on just that and get it, make sure that it succeeds? This is because the path from discovery to eventual market is very long drawn, and it's prone to failure on many numerous paths. And that's why it's really important that we fund multiple approaches in parallel. This is a risk mitigation strategy that really increases the probability of success. So if we divest our efforts and focus on small molecules as well as gene therapy as well as repurposable entities, then our ability to succeed in the future will be higher, at least along one of those axes. And so, as I've alluded to earlier, ACD is helping by facilitating research tools, by facilitating building of a comprehensive patient registry, by facilitating building of core outcomes, and then raising awareness. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of like what we've done over the past 6 months and what we plan to in the future. So last year, ACD put together a gene therapy consortium consisting of all of these members whom you've heard from over the past 2 days. The mission of the consortium is to facilitate timely sharing of information and tools to enable gene therapy. The goal is also to make sure that we encourage sharing of resources. So we get to our eventual goal of a therapy faster. And as part of this, we put together a gene therapy advancement grant. I want to mention very quickly that we are accepting applications for this gene therapy advancement grant. The application for this quarter is open till August 15th. So please write to us if you have an interest in applying for this. And as part of this, as has already been spoken about earlier, we awarded Dr. Laura Baroncelli the first grant for technical skill building in her lab. So this grant is a small grant, and the main reason we want to put these opportunities out there is because if you have a small need, even technical capacity building or a small reagent, we want to be able to remove that obstacle for you. So feel free to reach out to us if you're running into these issues. The next initiative that ACD has put together, that the CZI grant has made possible, is an ACD fellowship. So we are rolling out 2 fellowships each year. This is to encourage new researchers to study one of these topics, or it can also be for topics that aren't explicitly denoted here. But all of these are help to encourage research and to remove those roadblocks on our path to clinic. If you're interested in applying for these, we are accepting applications currently. So please reach out to us for more information. You'll also find updates on the website. As mentioned earlier, we have a reagent work group underway. This is more to address critical tools like antibodies or cell lines. If you have tools that you've developed and you would like to share with the larger community, reach out to us. If you don't have one of these and need some, also reach out to us, and we'll include you in this group. Patient registry. Many of you have heard that we do have an existing patient registry at Invitae. We also found out through feedback from various stakeholders that accessing the information in this registry is sometimes difficult. And updating information in this registry is also difficult. So in part, to address some of these concerns, we are in the process of putting together a new patient registry. We are still evaluating multiple platforms, but the goal is to find one that can capture longitudinal health and interventions for patients. We also hope to have easier access for clinicians, patients, and industry alike. And once we have this registry finalized, we hope that you will be our partners in this process by updating your information over here, even though you may have participated in a prior registry. I spoke about clinical core outcomes. We have AP Cori grant review underway to help enable this goal. The main purpose of this is to enable patient families to become familiar with research and clinical trial progress, and with the help of professionals to help parents define personalized core outcomes. And all of this information will be aggregated in a document that can be shared with all CCDS stakeholders to enable the clinical trial success. So as I wrap up, I do want to highlight that this has been a great 2 days to hear from all of our academic and industry stakeholders. Collaborative research models where all of us work together are definitely on the rise, and they have been associated with better outcomes and more value for the community overall. And so I really think that this is our breakout year. We've enjoyed great success in funding. We've enjoyed great participation from our stakeholders. And I'm really hopeful that over the next several years, we will begin to see all of those efforts convert to fruition and result in a therapeutic on the market. And with that, I'll hand over to Heidi for last remarks. Oops, I realized I forgot this part, but...
No, this is great. So this is a quick poll, folks. We're seeing, okay, we heard all of this great pitch from Sangeeta. We're all ready to do, and this is, you know, how interested are you in engaging more with the research process?
Thanks, Laura.
We're at almost 50% voted. You know, I'm trying to show this these results also for our industry stakeholders, right? Because I think it's important for industry and for the research community, the academic research community, to see what we want as families and patients. So please vote. Okay, I think I'm gonna stop the poll here. We're at 65%. And you know, it's more than 90% that are very interested or somewhat interested. So I think this is, am I sharing the results there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you, Sangeeta. We are so fortunate to have you helping guide our research strategy. I'm excited to see what the next 2 years with the CCI grant and your help is going to bring to our community. Just to round out the conference, we started out on Sunday with our family having a meeting to celebrate our Walk for Strength, and we launched a challenge to the family members to take the ACD challenge. These are the ways we feel that the family members can best really change the future for CCDS. First, advocate and tell our stories. So someone in the comments mentioned, you know, why is COVID getting vaccines so quickly? Like, why will our cures take so long? And, you know, one of the really impactful things is awareness, and the more we can advocate and tell our story of our children and these disorders and how they're affecting us and the need for better treatments, then the more awareness there is and the more we're going to get some of that pressure. C is Coriell Biosamples, and I think this conference has been amazing to really understand that these samples are being used and they're critical to helping develop research strategies and also to understand each of our children's individual mutations and make sure that those are not left out of the research. And then lastly, D, data. Like Sangeeta spoke about, there's a need for sharing our data so that, again, there's an understanding of the disease and the phenotype, the effects that the disease has on our children. And so I hope everyone can take this challenge. We're not going to have a formal Q&A now. We're going to send out polls to follow up on the conference to get your feedback. And we also welcome emails to hear how you felt. Any questions that didn't get answered, we'd love for you to send them our way. So thank you so much. Thank you for our speakers. Thank you for the time you spend in your laboratories working on advancing the future for our children. We can't tell you enough how meaningful this is, and we just want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all the work you do. And as I've said, please reach out for any way you can think of that we can support your work, because that is what we are here for as a community. And thank you for all those who helped to coordinate today, the moderators, the parents. Thank you for attending. Thank you for being the voice of our community, and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much, everyone. Oh, and also, I'm sorry, I'm not driving the slides. We will see you in 2021 for our in-person conference. We hope, our fingers are crossed, that the world is a happy and travel-friendly place, and we have rescheduled for Park City, where we had first intended to have our symposium. It is June 26th through the 29th, and we hope to see you there. Please look for more information in the coming months. Thank you.